Hello cats and kittens, welcome back to the channel. I'm Lord Bacchus. If you've subscribed, you can call me LB. And if you haven't, well, what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, and comment. Now, onto the video. Yeah. Okay, so these... Why are you doing that? So these 6 guys, they got online and they found out what the best episode of each year was for anime. Did I say episode again? Fuck. Okay. So these 6 guys got online and they found the best anime for each year. Every year anime had existed. And they ranked the first episode of every one of those anime. Hello? Yeah, I'm doing it now. What do you mean they made an apology video? What do you mean I have to watch it? I'm going to watch it, but I'm only going to give it 2 times speed. I'm not doing any slower than that. All right. I'll be back later. Fuck. Okay. So I decided to do the exact same thing. And you were here with me, housekeeper-san. And you watched 4 anime. I watched 60. In normal speed. And I'm going to rate them all. See if the internet hates me. Not that anyone's going to watch this. Are we ready? Excellent. First one. Instant History and Otogi Manga Calendar. Why have I put them together? It's quite simple. They were not accessible. There's archival footage of a couple seconds here and there, but I can't give these 2 a rating. So I didn't. Simple as that. Now, before we continue, now that we've gotten that one out of the way, ranking the rest is very particular, you could say. Anything that was made in the 60s is clearly not going to be the same as anything made yesterday. So what we've done, in my mind, we have put down a ranking system on how we're going to rank these things. Animation quality for the time, whether or not it was appealing for the time, and how the character and story develop for each episode. Now, at some point, we've got to say, we've got to change things. And we do that after 30 episodes. So at about 1995 is when things change. The actual animation at that point is very different from 1963. So we can't give points for anime that's going to be exceptional unless it goes beyond that. And we can take points if it for some reason goes below. We're also going to keep character and story development, but we're also going to put in, would I continue watching the rest of the season? Some of these are going to be hard to do because I've already seen lots and lots of episodes. But would I watch them again? We'll find out. Astro Boy, Tetsuwan Atom. Quite a well-known anime. How people talk about this in 20 seconds is beyond me, but it was quite well done. I didn't really understand the father's reasoning for being upset at Astro not growing up. I mean, he made a fucking robot. What was he expecting? But it was appealing, would be appealing to children. I've given it a B. Solid start for the very beginning of anime, you could say. Next year, 1964. Big X. I've never heard of this one before. Children would probably love it. However, I did feel the animation was not as good as Astro Boy. But to be fair, I did watch Astro Boy with a HD remastered. It probably felt a little inspired by Captain America. In the end, I gave it a C. Nothing else I can say about that. Jungle Tai, also known as Kimbo the White Lion. I saw The Lion King back in the 90s. I had the VHS. Got a mold. Children may have loved this show. Animation was alright. It was in colour, which is great. But the story itself didn't grab me. Slightly more depressing for a first episode of anime that I've ever seen in a while. D tier. I surprisingly did not enjoy it. Osomatsu-kun. We're back into black and white animation. Still pretty smooth. I don't know what in the Mickey Rooney racism was going on, but I guess Asians stereotyping Asians is perhaps not racist. I must have brought death! So far, it seems that anime is really targeted towards children, but if I was a child in the 60s, I would enjoy this. B tier. Muck Go Go Go. Speed Racer, as we all would know it in the West. Nothing bad with the animation. First sports anime that we've come across, and I was bored shitless. I'm not a car guy. I don't enjoy car racing. Story didn't grab me at all. I hated this. I'm sorry. If you love this, I'm sorry. I hated this. D tier. Cyborg 009. I've never heard of this one in my life. But the animation certainly has been changing over the last 5 years. Story was okay, but it felt like we were kind of missing the beginning episodes, when this cyborg team was formed. More mature version of Astro Boy. So 5 years later, if I was watching Astro Boy, I'd probably enjoy this. So I gave it a C tier. So, it's not Astro Boy though, but it is what it is. Dororo. I'm familiar with the remake. I've not watched the remake, but this is the first mature anime on the list, and honestly, this episode was fantastic. Direction, pacing, action were all well above par, and it's surprising that it took 50 years to get a remake. A tier. Moving on, we've now hit the 70s. Ashita no Joe. I've seen Megalobox, and I imagine Megalobox probably was inspired heavily by Ashita no Joe. I did not like Megalobox too much. I'm just not into boxing either. Story in this one didn't grab me, but the stylization in the anime, it did feel very much like it was in the slum-esque parts of Japan, probably post-World War II, or even very similar to, say, 1930s depression. You think maybe George and Lenny from Of Mice and Men. Sports anime, I do like some, but not the boxing. Unfortunately, I gave this a D tier. Lupin the Third. So, the animation styling has carried forward from the previous anime, in particular the dark, heavy speed lines. Another sports anime. Well, it's not really sports anime, is it? It's what is it? What is Lupin the Third? It's more like a heist anime. But this one just featured racing, so it kind of felt very Speed Racer-esque. Did have some fan service and witty puns going for it, but that can't be the only drawing card for an anime. C tier. Devilman 1972. Interesting story. Animation was pretty good. supernatural anime for the first time. Kind of felt a little westernish, like He-Man or Thundercats from the 80s. I enjoyed this. I gave it a B tier. I'd probably almost think about watching it for the entire season. Doraemon. Okay, so the first episode, the footage is lost in time. It's the Doctor Who of anime. Doctor Who episodes are also lost in time. So it's unfortunate. I know how iconic this is. I could not rate it. It's not being tiered. It's that simple. Heidi, Girl of the Alps. Clean animation, but bored the absolute shit out of me. D tier. UFO Robo Grendizer. Grendizer? Grendizer? 1975. First mecha anime on the list. Quite interesting, some good character development. Honestly, was a bit of a plot twist throughout the episode. Not as clean as previous anime, but we've lost the use of thick, dark lines that have appeared, particularly for speed lines. Probably the first anime where names of moves get called out. B tier. Enjoyed it. Candy. Slightly less boring than Heidi, but also slightly less quality in animation too. D tier. There's very little I can say about this one. Shodenji Machine Vaults V. Well, is that V or 5? I don't know. 1977. Would have thought I'd enjoy this more. In the opening, where all the Earth just gets wiped out, but then 5 heroes show up in a robot, suddenly change the tide by beating one other robot. Animation was kind of ordinary. I love Transformers, Voltron, Gundam. This, not so much. Transformation sequence was a bit slow as well. C tier. Future Boy Conan. Clean animation, except for, there's one particular spot. But, moving on. Started interesting, ended interesting. Not fully convinced I would keep going, but it would have probably made a nice movie. C tier. Finally, the granddaddy of mecha anime, Mobile Suit Gundam. Sound was clear, a factor in this anime being rated so highly. I'd certainly keep watching a few more episodes if I was in 1979. Well targeted to the male teen demographic, and the animation was quite good for the time. A tier. It was close to being S, but not quite there. Densetsu Kyojin Ideon, 1980. The anime, the story felt a little bit more interesting than it did with Gundam. For some reason, I didn't really notice much of a soundtrack in anime up until this one. So, for that reason, we give it an A tier. Urusei Yatsura, 1981. Oh boy. Very entertaining. Had quite a few laughs. Lom is super cute. But I definitely tune in for the hopes that there's more fan service and comedy, because we got a lot of both in episode 1. For that reason, this is the first S tier. Macross, 1982. After Gundam and Ideon, I didn't think another mecha anime would be of interest. This one kind of feels more like a better Ideon. It probably has more to do with having characters that are more likable, and for a mecha anime, so far, the animation in this has been top quality. Also A tier. You'd think I'd have a thing for mecha anime, I keep rating them A's. 1983. Captain Tsubasa. More sports anime. I swear I do love sports anime. But Captain Tsubasa, Wasn't impressed by the animation. Maybe characters are very manga driven in terms of how they look. And not being a soccer fan, you know, it's if you were a soccer fan, maybe you'd have more interest, but I did not. C tier. 1984, Fist of the North Star. Very iconic anime. We all know the meme. This episode was fantastic, especially compared to previous entries. There are quite a few A's in the previous years. Massive difference in animation. This would have been a clear watch back in the day, but because of the story and the animation, we have another S tier. 1985, Touch. Alright, animation was average, backgrounds and landscapes were drawn pretty well, you know. They were eye-catching, straight lines everywhere, you know, maybe it's like a OCD thing. Very little baseball for the first episode, and it's supposed to be a sports anime. Not that I'm that interested in baseball, although that was probably the only thing I could watch in Japan. It seemed to focus on the black sheep of the three main roles, and it didn't interest me. C tier. Dragon Ball is up. Very entertaining. I didn't remember the animals, the dinos talking, which was, you know, fun, you know, very appealing to children. If I was a kid back in the 80s, I'd definitely be watching this every week. The anime gave us a hero, a quest, a villain, and was an interesting take on Journey to the West. B tier. I am sorry it's not higher, but there is a reason, and I will go through that in the ending notes. City Hunter, 1987. Action, titties, crime-fighting playboy. Felt like watching Batman, but it wasn't. Up until now, most shadows have been created with dark hatching strokes, but now we've finally moved on to something that's more of a dark tonal shadow instead. And one crime solved for the first episode. I would hope there are longer story arcs throughout the 51 episodes and not 51 crimes. This was pretty awesome, this show. I'd think about watching it. A tier. Yoroiden Samurai Troopers, or as it was probably known, Ronin Warriors. Animation was expected for the 80s. Action scenes were boring and lacking actions, unfortunately. Very little happened. The only thing going for this anime was the introduction scenes for the heroes and the villains, but there wasn't much to like about the rest. So, D tier. Ranma Half, 1989. Took a little bit to get into the episode, but when it did, it took off. It was very funny. Fan service, if that's what you're into, was there, but it was tied to the comedic aspect of the situation, so it was quite necessary. They seem to have gotten away with quite a lot before the 90s. That's all I can say. B tier. Fushigi no Umi no Naria. Quite surprised with this, intrigued by the story. Times it felt like watching Pokemon. It was a teen girl with a Pokemon line, fighting Team Rocket. What more can I tell you? B tier. Oni-sama E. Is that right? Oni-sama E. Now, I'm not going to throw a hissy fit over this one, but quite frankly, I found this to be a boring lesbian Kaguya-sama. You know, for whatever reason, you know, I did not get the episode. I could find zero reason why somebody would react so badly to this episode, but it was just boring enough for me to get the rating that I did give it. D tier. Yu Yu Hakusho, 1992. There are two parts to this episode, remembering what happened before the accident and then the funeral. It's an interesting way to start a show, but there was very little to grab one's attention, unfortunately. I've seen the show and it's actually pretty good, but the first episode really doesn't do much for itself. C tier. Slam Dunk, 1993. Teen boys will do anything for a little bit of pussy, including playing basketball. And I can say that because I'm a cat. Rivalries in war, love, and basketball. Very tempted to put this in A tier, and it was funnier than I expected the anime to be. But it's in B tier. Sailor Moon S. Animation felt either foreground or background, not something that I was interested in. Interesting story, villains in the shadows, very targeted towards female base though. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not the demographic for this one. Probably the first anime that's not a first season of sorts. Kind of got the Yu-Gi-Oh! Naming to it. C tier. I'm very sorry, Sailor Moon fans. 1995, this is where everything changes. How we tier these anime now changes. Neon Genesis Evangelion. Oh. The quality in this animation is 1,000,000,000% better than anything we have seen so far. Everything in here in this first episode is perfect. Characters, stories, how it all looks, it was absolutely gorgeous. S tier. I would honestly double S tier if I could. I can, but I'm not going to. Case Closed, or as we know it, Detective Conan. This is an unfortunate year for it to start. It's essentially a one-man Japanese Scooby-Doo without the weed and Scooby-Doo snacks. You know, we were spoilt last year. The animation quality is not going to be the same. And City Hunter already did Crime Mystery a lot better. The show is fully reliant on the hook at the end of the show. So unfortunately, C tier. Berserk, 1997. There's enough here to keep me intrigued, partly because we seem to start somewhere in the middle of the story. At the end of the episode, we backtrack in time to where it all begins. The last time I watched this, it must have not been in HD. But the animation look really good now. Unfortunately, it's only a B tier. I'm just not sold on this. It's very reminiscent to something like 1980s Conan the Barbarian, which itself had very little substance in story. Cowboy Bebop. Better version of City Hunter, but in space. Characters are more likable. For that reason, we give it an A tier. It was very close to being S. One Piece. I'm doing it. Oh, I'm going to do it. C tier, because it's a pirate anime. Get it? C. Anyway, I did not mean to be controversial. I know people love this one. I did not enjoy it. Perhaps it's a little too goofy, but that's just how I see it. And, you know, I'm not going to love them all. Sorry, it's what it is. Inuyasha. Quite the opening. There's enough action to keep one going. It's a shame it's not Neko Yasha, because, you know, I'm not a dog person. But a B tier, nonetheless. Hellsing 2001. Animation looked a little bit different. Felt very dark, which goes with the themes, I guess, vampires. But being drawn more into darker, grittier, it still lacked a little bit of depth for the first episode. B tier. Naruto. Ninjas make for a better story than vampires. I can't say much about Naruto. It's very, I guess, okay for a first episode. But it's ninjas. Who doesn't love ninjas? Full Metal Alchemist. It's like a magic without the BS attached to it. So one of the few better anime that you could actually watch in English. Hard to comment on this given, I've watched it already. And that's going to be the same for most of these shows. I'm giving it an A tier. It's fantastic. Who doesn't love brotherly anime? But in the good sense. Hello, brother. Bleach. I've never watched Bleach before, but for this I was pleasantly surprised. Had a stronger episode than Naruto. So for that reason, A tier. Mushishi. I've never heard of this. It was not bad, interesting in a way. Quite different. Story didn't actually capture me in the end. Despite all that, I did like the tone and pacing. Unfortunately, C tier. Death Note. And I've yet to comment on an opening, but the opening is top notch. Yeah. There's a lot of opening songs. This one was fantastic. The animation, again, absolutely gorgeous. And the story, we all power trip at times, don't we? It's essentially what this anime is. It's a power trip anime with absolutely gorgeous animation. S tier. Gurren Lagann. I don't know what was going on with the story, but I did appreciate the fan service and the brief moments of comedy. At this point, good animation just can't be enough. D tier. There's probably one or two fans out there who are not going to like that. Toradora. Lovely anime with some laughs. I've seen this one before. It's really, really good. I honestly have nothing bad to say about this one. And it sticks in D tier. What more can I say? Fairy Tail I've never seen either. First time watching it. I gave Bleach an A. Also got to give this an A. Probably slightly more enjoyable than Bleach. Slightly a little bit more action. And I didn't really need to think during this one, which is, it's nice to shut the brain off. Just enjoy. That's what we did. Angel Beats. Violence and laughs. A plenty. Because it's in tier A. Hunter Hunter. Ugh. Naruto had ninjas doing ninja stuff. Bleach had Shinigami doing Shinigami stuff. Fairy Tail had wizards doing wizard stuff. Hunter Hunter told me very little about the story. C tier. Sorry to the Hunter Hunter fans. Sword Art Online. Given what I did to Hunter Hunter, people are probably going to hate me. No complaints. Apart from the death aspect of the anime, it's literally every game is fantasy. The death aspect just adds more suspense. Last few moments is the hook, and that really shows you the despair of being stuck in it. A tier. Attack on Titan. Would 100% continue watching this, and I've seen it all. There's a bit of world building, introduction to characters, soundtrack is fantastic. Action, despair, it's not quite on the Neon Genesis level, but given what has been an A, this far exceeds A tier. Giving it an S. Tokyo Ghoul. This episode really shows the journey Kaneki is on, having been forced into something and then struggling to come to terms with that. Very hard to put into S tier, but it feels more like an A. And that opening theme song. 10 out of 10. One Punch. Could I sound any more pathetic doing One Punch Man? Alright. There were 2 modes to this: all out and side character. That is One Punch Man in a nutshell. Fortunately, I felt too much happened. I get that fights are over in a second, one punch, that's it. 5 fight scenes, it's a little too much for an anime about a side character. B tier. My Hero Academia. Oh, we get a deep feel for the world and what the main character is going through. Some aspect of his situation is probably relatable to many people who feel they can't possibly be enough in one way or another. We've also had ninjas and pirates, and now a double dose of superheroes. Even if they're a little weird, P.S. Sit on my face, Mount Lady. A tier. 2017 gave us Black Clover. Didn't feel there was much world building other than everyone has magic except Asta. No different from My Hero at this point. It's only the last minute that really puts this into C tier. And I probably might not watch it. I'd only watch it if I had nothing else to watch. Violet Evergarden, 2018. One of the anime housekeeper's son actually watched and was completely disappointed when I told her we're only watching the first episode. The animation, as with all Kyoto animation, is stunningly gorgeous. And with an intriguing story that shares so much, the past that sets up the future of one girl's discovery, to know what it means to love someone. It's an absolute beautiful anime. S tier. Kimetsu no Yaiba, or Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is much easier to say. Interesting style of animation. It's quite refreshing to have something different. A little less darker than Tokyo Ghoul. But there was a god-awful amount of monologuing going on. A tier. Jujutsu Kaisen. One of the few anime of the more recent years that I have not watched. And I really don't know what to say about this one. It's all right. I'm slightly intrigued about the story, but at the same time, I didn't really care for the story or much about the characters. C tier. Horimiya. The girls are pretty. The guys are pretty. There's a little something for everyone. The episode focuses on either one or the other, get a feel for their backgrounds and situations. And the 2 people who barely interact are now thrust into a super cute friendship that could change at any moment. B tier. Chainsaw Man. Oh boy. Probably the bloodiest anime on the list. Or at least the bloodiest in recent years. Touching story between a kid forced into a bad situation and his chainsaw devil pup. A tier. It really does have great character focus in the first episode. This is why it's an A tier. Sousou no Frieren. I know there are a lot of Frieren fans out there. It's nice. I guess you could say this is the Hobbit anime. Like everything is done is in this episode, it's just nice. But nice doesn't get you anything higher than B. Solo Leveling. Really don't know what to make of this one. I have seen it. Is it better than Frieren? Yes. Is it on par with Chainsaw Man? Not quite. But it did happen to end on a cliffhanger, which is going to draw a lot of people into more episodes, including myself. Unfortunately, it's only a B tier. Sakamoto Days. John Wick meets Way of the House Husband. If you haven't seen either of those, please do. John Wick is fantastic, and I do prefer the Way of the House Husband live action, even though the budget for it looks very, very shoddy. But it is quite funny and it is quite good. The action scenes were great, but given not only the ending of the episode and the fact that Sakamoto has effectively retired, I can't say I expect too many more action episodes. Sad to say that this is one anime I did end up dropping. I gave it a B tier. It doesn't always guarantee the rest of the show will live up to B. I dropped it. I would say the rest of the season is probably not a B, but that's just me. And on to the final tier list. As we can see, we have a very, very lovely looking bell curve. If you turn it sideways, very few S, very few D. Everything else is in the middle, as a bell curve should be. On to some final notes. Now, a lot of the big shonen long-running titles I may have given B's and C's. To be fair, these are long-running shows that probably were deemed to have a long-running future. So there's character, story, they can all build up. That's why they don't have these big S tier, A tier rankings to them. It just is what it is. So things like your Naruto, Dragon Ball, they didn't get there. I'm actually quite surprised about some of these episodes that were ranked. Who came up with this tier list? I do not know. I mean, Pokemon was 1997. I would think that would have been incredibly highly rated. Apparently, Berserk was better. One of the earlier ones, it for some reason beat out Battleship Yamato in, what was it, 1975, I think, or maybe it was 74. I can't remember. 2021. Honestly, I don't know how Horimiya got there. You had To Your Eternity, which was absolutely fantastic. That was gorgeous, amazing story. Quite a few other ones there. In terms of anime in general, anime's for everyone, and not everyone's going to have the same opinion as me. Your opinion's probably going to be wrong. Just kidding. Don't hate me. But this is what it is. This is what I've ranked it. Some of these, honestly, they were between A and S or B and C. Urusei Yatsura almost gave it an A. Devilman almost gave that an A. Cyborg 009 almost gave that a B. But in the end, this is what it is. And as you can clearly see, there's nothing in F tier. We don't do F tier for anime unless it's an absolute stinker. And I really hope everyone here watching this enjoys the anime that they're watching. Thank you and goodbye. Bye bye now.